Hello and welcome to Warcraft Daily for today, the 21st of October 2013. So in today's news we have, first of all, some really interesting stats that I found in mmo-champion, and then a sort of coverage of some of the recent blue tweets. I did try to look at the posts recently in the various trackers that I use, and honestly, there was nothing of note. That said, it's a Monday, and what can you expect? Because Blizzard, at the time of recording, are probably still all fast asleep. Now, let's get into the actual news. So the first really interesting thing was by mmo-champion, and it's like a graph that shows the completion rate of the of raids on any difficulty. Now it goes via player instead of via character, so it does give quite a good thing. They did warn that the sample is slightly biased because players who are not in a guild are much less likely to appear in their sample. Not particularly sure why, but anyway, let's get into the numbers. So, yes, 60% of people have killed Galleon, 75% have killed the Shah of Anger, 76 have cleared Mogashan Vaults, 69 have cleared the Heart of Fear, 65 for the Terrace of Endless Springs, Nalak is a 60, Undasta is only 50, Throne of Thunder is 54, Ordos is 10%, which is quite small, and Siege of Orgrimmar Wing 1 is only 36%, which is quite low when you think about it. So I thought this was actually really interesting. Also, Siege of Orgrimmar Wing 4, I'm not too sure where the other wings are in their graph, but apparently they're not there. Siege of Orgrimmar Wing 4 is 2%, so I suppose that means people that have cleared it normal. So 2% of the raiding population have killed it on either normal or flex, I suppose. Which, for Grush, I just think this is really interesting data. It definitely does show a decrease in participation in raids as the expansions went on. Obviously that does make sense. I'd say that they've still kind of net lost players, but the increase in quality of patches has meant that the net loss of players has been decreased. It's still a loss, but it's not as big a loss, I suppose. What I think is probably most interesting is the 5.2 stats. Because, honestly, 54% of people have done Throne of Thunder? That seems weird to me. I mean, did that many people, like, if we go from, say, Mogashan Vault 76 to Throne of Thunder 54, so let's just say, like, does that correspond with a certain amount of people leaving the game or quitting or not playing or something like that? I wonder, because it would be very interesting to know. What it does show is the world boss has been very popular, and I think that's nice. It goes pretty well in with their design, but I just think this is a really interesting piece of data. As for Siege of Orgrimmar, it will be very interesting to see what the completion rates for Wing 2 are like, because, as we all know about Wing 2, it's slightly infamous. I don't really know about 3, because that's one time I did it, I was lucky to have a fantastic group. Actually, I've had a fantastic group every single time I've done a wing, because I do them about 45 minutes after the reset, which is pretty handy. But, yeah, it's interesting. Essentially, it's what you'd expect. Participation decreases as the expansion goes on, which, in the case of Mists of Pandaria, is rather unfortunate, because the quality of this expansion really did increase as time went on. Of course, I think the increase in quality of these patches will just serve to mean that less people leave the game. The people who are still in the game are more positive about it, and it paves the way for the next expansion doing a very good job of reinvigorating, revitalizing the game in the sort of 5.4 style of doing things. And I like the 5.4 style of doing things. I think it's better than the 5.1, 5.0 kind of OMG dailies thing, which was a bit crap, as I'm sure just about everyone under the sun would agree. Now, let's move on to some tweets, and there are quite a few of them. So, these are pretty much all about LFR, which is okay, because that means it, well, according to this graph, probably applies to about 60% of you. So, LFR queues are getting larger, and Blizzard think that this is actually a bug, but a lot of players are blaming tank balance, in terms of just player numbers. Now, this actually, what the players say about the tank balance does make sense to me. And the reason for that is because tanks in LFR, it's a bit weird. You get a lot of blame, and often if the other tank's bad, you're just going to die anyway because they won't tank swap, and then people will blame you for being terrible. Tanks just get a really bad experience in LFR, which is shit, and honestly, all the tanks that I know in-game, there's probably about 4 of them, none of them will tank LFR, they just won't go near it, because it's not worth their time. Which is crazy. Honestly, I'd be happy enough to sit through the punishment of tank LFR for the like shorter queue, but definitely queue times have been hitting up like 40 minutes. Not my server. My server usually stays under 15 or 20, but wow, imagine having 45 minutes. And what the real kicker is, if you get a 45-minute queue and then you only get in at the third boss or the second boss, and then you need to queue again. Not cool. So yeah, it's definitely a bit of a problem. Hopefully it is a bug, that's what would be ideal, and then they can fix the bug, and that would mean the issue can be solved without having to socially engineer players into tanking LFR more, because socially engineering players is usually something that is kind of tricky to do. Blizzard are quite good at doing it though, they can change the mindsets of players over expansions very easily, to the point where they made us think that, well, you know, if you remove the daily cap, then you can do all the dailies at once and burn yourself out. That was them sort of biting themselves in the foot. Is it bite? No, shooting themselves in the foot. Yeah, that's the correct speech of phrase of term thingy. Yeah, I can really English. They also said that as for LFR, enrage timers are a little bit of a concern at the minute because they care more about people not failing the mechanics than hitting enrage timers. So this is a bit of an odd one, isn't it? I mean, alright, obviously mechanics need to be a thing that happen, but enrage timers, that does not, like, Blizzard is a gameplay first, like, design philosophy. Making it so that you can, it's just weird. With people doing, say, like 10, 15k DPS, whatever, in a LFR because, you know, they perhaps don't know that you should hit all your buttons as quickly as possible or something like that, and they're just playing like shit. Because they're there, meaning that the fight has to last 20 minutes because the enrage mechanic has completely been destroyed, I don't know if that's fun. That said, it's probably more fun than, you know, wiping the damn thing for 40 minutes. But I don't know, I don't like LFR, it's a problem with people, I suppose, but I just think it's a really weird, clunky way of doing it. Yeah, enrage timers in LFR, I mean, it was a bit of a problem with Neuroshen because it wasn't correctly selecting DPS players, but other than that, I haven't really found enrage timers to be a massive problem. I suppose a lot of groups have, and that's probably why they're a little bit concerned about it, but it definitely does lead to a problem. Like, the mechanics are already nearly trivial. Nearly. It's like, if they're trivial enough so that you don't really have to do them that well, but of course you can still get yourself killed by them. But the enrage timers are also very easy, so it's just weird. If these enrage timers were any longer, we could be looking at 25-minute fights, and I don't think anyone wants encounters to reasonably last 25 minutes. You'll fall asleep at the damn keyboard. There'll be more failures for people just thinking, fuck this shit, I'm not beating on this boss for 20 minutes. So yeah, a little bit of an issue. I think it's funny in LFR, often I see that there's about 5 or 6 people. There's like me and the people at the top of the thing, the top of the meters, that are basically doing the entire DPS of the raid. And then everyone else is doing, like, literally nothing. To the point where it's just, like, it's amazing how much there's people that have got good gear that do terrible DPS. And this is not trying to be some DPS elitist, it's just like, come on, play your class, people. So yeah, I don't really know about this whole enrage timer thing. If they make the enrage timers longer, okay, net, people might get through them a bit faster, but I'm still concerned about them diminishing the importance of DPS. I suppose as that is, like, DPS being extremely important, still like a key design, like, goal of LFR, probably not. But yeah, I think just with LFR, it's something that, as it goes on, is going to be increasingly more for the kind of lower end tier of, like, skill, I suppose. And then Flex, once Flex gets really puggable and people are used to doing that, and there's a high chance that the pug you go into will be successful, I think that's probably more where the people who are just doing LFR because they don't have the time to commit to a 3 nights a week raid team, I think that's where they'll go. Already Blizzard have been seeing that Flex is being pugged a massive amount. So there's that. Now, they also said that Proving Grounds will never be a requirement for entering the LFR, but they could show that you don't need as high an item level to enter. I think this is great. At the end of the day, item level is only a measure of time spent. It's not really a measure of skill, up to a degree, of course. And by putting in Proving Grounds, they put a little bit more skill in there so that a player with lower gear than the requirement can get in. And yeah, like, if you have a gold Proving Ground medal, someone could have 30 item levels on you and you'll play better than them, probably. Because just the way gear actually doesn't mean a massive amount if the person with the gear doesn't know what they're doing, because they can't use the power of that gear, whereas someone with lesser gear can at least use it to its fullest potential. Now the next thing, so this is actually an opinion that I share, and that a lot of people have said that LFR is more the, like, it's often more the thing that you do for the reward but not for the gameplay. And it's really just going through pain for getting gear, and in often cases it is. I even hear in the comments, like, the people who say, well, you know, all I have time to do is LFR. I see those same people in just as many comments saying, you know, being annoyed at some bad pug they had or something like that, which is absolutely fair. I even see it in some of my LFR guides where people are like, holy shit, the group you got was really good. That's why you go like 15 minutes after the reset, by the way. But anyway, so Blizzard said that basically not every activity, like someone's desire for gear always plays a part in it, and LFR that seems to be a greater part. That's essentially what they mean, and that even heroic raiders can get bored after the gear isn't dropping. The thing with the heroic raiders is, once their gear drops, that probably means that they've understood and done the mechanics to the point where they've had all the fun out of the mechanics that they can get. The thing with LFR is, there's no fun in the mechanics at all. There just isn't. You know, some of the bosses with interesting mechanics are nerfed to the point where the mechanics don't matter at all, which means that it really just is slogging through something for 2 hours for the not minuscule, but the greatly not that big, I suppose, chance of getting gear. I see a lot of times in the comments, even people saying, I ran 4 LFRs this week, I got nothing, I coined everything, got nothing. That's not respectful of your time, and it's just such a big wad of time. It's an ideal way to burn people out, isn't it? I mean, no wonder the participation rates in LFR have been decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. I would say it's because people, you know, they went through the first few weeks of Throne of Thunder LFR, Siege of Orgrimmar comes up, and they maybe jump into Wing 2 or Wing 1, and they just think to themselves, nope, I'm not going through that bullshit again. You know, too much time was wasted. And honestly, I don't blame anyone for making that choice, because I don't think that it's... Yeah, I don't think it's fair to expect people to spend 3 to 4 hours a week doing stuff that's not particularly fun for getting gear, which, yeah, I don't think it's really worth doing in a lot of cases. Also, they said that LFR is more popular than Flex, however, they think Flex will be more fun for many of their players, so they don't really mind there being transition between the two. I think the more transition, the better, and the more flexible is used by pugs that are successful, the better. I think that Flex, honestly, the player base will probably get a little bit more skill on the whole because there'll be more people pugging Flex, because there was no pugging for Throne of Thunder or anything else. You couldn't pug into a raid to get your skill up. You would have to just LFR, and LFR didn't teach you anything. Now, at least if you're pugging Flex, people are doing content that will, I suppose, give them a little bit of skill at least. Also, they said they're considering laxing the kick rules in LFR to allow for easier kicking of toxic players. Now, this could be abused, but I think that on average it's probably a net gain, because toxic players aren't fun, they just ruin the experience for other people, so good riddance with them. Anyway, that's it for today's show. If you have any comments, please leave them in the thing. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. And with that, I'll see you next time.